Okay, so if you haven't been paying attention to the PTR cycle, I got a video for you to talk about what's actually changed this season in Mythic Plus, what's going to be kind of different from last season to this season. Maybe you took a break in the middle of War Within Season 1, like a lot of different people did, and you're jumping back in the season, and you kind of want a very quick video to try to figure out what's changing. This is going to be for you. Basically, first and foremost, what you need to know is there's a little bit of a dungeon scaling squish. The TLDR is that, M0s all the way up until 10s are going to be, slightly harder in terms of scaling. Around the 10 mark, they're going to be roughly the same as they were last season. And then beyond the 10 mark, they should be a little bit easier than they were last season. Ultimately, this isn't going to change too much. The most important thing tends to be Blizzard's scaling of mobs on the M0 difficulty for these keys between the ranges of 2 and 10. And so ultimately kind of comes down to whether or not M0 and like what M0 is scaled like. Talk about M0. M0 now also drops champion gear where it did it before. Previously, it dropped really, really bad gear. Now it drops some champion track gear. So if you need to gear a character and you want some 639 item level gear, go and jump into M0s, go and jump into Delves really early on. That's a way that you can get a character that you want to play on this brand new season, and you can get into 639 gear rather quickly by doing M0s and Delves. And so that's great. There's also a change as to what dungeons and what dungeon levels you're going to want to look to farm. So whenever you're looking to farm dungeons, 6s are the best if you are looking to farm runed crests. So really early on in the week, I would recommend trying to push your keys up to level 6 and farming 6s for the runed crests. This is also the bottom end of the hero track initial upgrade level. So you're able to get a bunch of rune crests, but you're able to simultaneously also get hero track gear and potentially utilize those rune crests to upgrade the hero track gear. Rune crests, by the way, are the heroic equivalent crest. They're not the gilded, the mythic level equivalent crests. So feel free to fire these away. I wouldn't worry too much about it. In addition to that, they also changed how many crests you end up getting. So timed keys grant significantly more crests all the way up until, if you do a 6, you can get 18 runed crests, and if you do a 12, you can get 20 gilded crests. Now, it's a little bit less if you actually end up depleting the key. I think the bottom end is like 8 if you end up depleting the key. But, again, doing the 6 for rune crest is like a huge deal. The other level that I would recommend for farming gear optimization is going to be the 7 level. The reason that you want to do the 7 level is because it's giving you gilded crests, and you're going to have to be able to get a bunch of gilded crests as well. Of course, the 3rd level, and I assume that this isn't going to happen for a lot of people week 1, although, it could happen for some people. If you're super sweaty, you've been grinding a bunch of gear, say, you're 655 item level or something like that, and you have some tier potentially, or you played on the PTR a bunch, you could be jumping into 10s week 1. Obviously, 10s are going to be that 3rd level that you're going to be looking to farm. But 6s and 7s, those are the levels that super early on I would highly recommend jumping into. Next thing that you need to know is that affixes have changed a little bit. First and foremost, Oblivion is gone. So that was the orb affix that all of the orbs tried to contact the mobs and give them a bunch of DR. That affix is gone. It's been replaced with an affix called Pulsar, and if you can see on screen right here, the quality of this is really low. So basically the orbs spawn out from players, and if you run into your fellow companions' orbs, or they run into your orbs, whichever happens first, then you end up getting a buff. The buff is similar to the one that happened with Oblivion, where it's Mastery and Leech for 30 seconds. If the Pulsar orbs are not soaked, the mobs will gain a 10% damage buff and 20% damage reduction per orb. That's not the only change to affixes, because there is a pretty big change that a lot of people know about, but not everybody knows about that because they're not paying attention to the PTR cycle. Affix levels have changed a bunch. First and foremost, on the +4 affix level, now that is where the Zaltath's Bargain is starting at. Previously, it was starting on 2. Now it's starting on 4, so the 2 and 3 level should be a little bit easier. It's just basically the timer. On the 7, it's Fort or Tyrant. On the 10, it's Fort or Tyrant again. That might leave you questioning, where is Challenger's Peril gone? Challenger's Peril has moved into the +12 affix with the Guile. So at Keystone level 12, Zaltath removes her bargains, and Zaltath's Bargain is replaced with Zaltath's Guile. In addition to that, that also contains the Challenger's Peril, making any deaths during a Keystone subtract 15 seconds from the time remaining. The Guile also no longer has the initial 10% additional damage and 10% additional health on the mobs. Instead, it changes the scaling from 7% per level to 10% per level, which is a very different situation than an additional bump of that 10-10, like you see on this graph here. That was basically like skipping multiple key levels before. This is going to be a lot more gradual. So the 12, the 13 levels, those are kind of back in the mix where those were being skipped before. And so if you're looking to push medium high keys, especially earlier on in the season, this is going to feel like a much better system for just you as a player. Beyond that, there's not a ton that has changed. Again, the bigger thing is, the Gilded Crests updates. Crafting is actually a lot more valuable. You should be looking to craft on cooldown. This was previously not something that you were doing in the past, but now crafting on CD is something that's going to be a little bit more favorable for you as a player. So those crests are going to be a little bit more valuable even, and the sparks are going to potentially even be a little bit more valuable for you. But that's it. That's all you need to know. Send this video to your friends as well if they need to jump back into things and figure out what's going on with the season. There's also another reward at 3,000 IO for which is basically like 12s and 13s. And so if you're looking for this mount as well, that's where that applies at. So go check those out. Hope to see you guys in a future video as well. I'm making a bunch of Mythic Plus related content. So if you're into that kind of thing, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.